The gleaming, sterile lobby of Innovate Dynamics was Mark Thompson's kingdom. At 28, he was the newly promoted Director of Facilities, a title he wore like a crown. He moved through the world with the unshakable confidence of a man who had never known failure. His expensive suit a shield against the mediocrity he saw it everywhere. His kingdom was one of appearances, of polished glass and brushed steel, and he ruled it with an iron fist and a condescending smirk. His subjects were the invisible people, the ones who moved in the periphery, the maintenance crew, the security guards, and, lowest of all in his estimation, the cleaning staff. Among them was Elena Morale. She was in her late 50s, a quiet woman with kind, tired eyes and hands that were chapped and worn. She moved through the building after hours like a ghost, her presence marked only by the scent of lemon cleaner and the pristine surfaces she left in her wake. To Mark, she was not a person. She was a function, a line item on his budget, and a frequent target for his petty displays of power. Tonight it was one such occasion. A team of high-profile investors was touring the facility, and Mark was in his element, preening under their appreciative gaze. As he led them through the lobby, he spotted Elena quietly polishing the large glass panel that separated the lobby from the main atrium. He saw his opportunity. And as you can see, gentlemen, Mark said, his voice booming with false authority, we maintain a standard of absolute perfection here. Nothing is overlooked. He stopped directly in front of Elena, running a finger along the glass she had just wiped. He pretended to find a smudge. Excuse me, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. He didn't use her name, he didn't know it. Is this what you call clean? I can see a smudge from here. My grandmother could do a better job with a dirty rag. The investors shifted uncomfortably. Elena stopped her work, her back still to him, her shoulders tensing slightly. She said nothing. Her silence infuriated Mark. It felt like defiance. I am speaking to you, he snapped, his voice sharper now. When I point out a flaw in your work, you are to acknowledge it and correct it. Is that understood, or is that too complicated for you? He took a step closer, intending to tap her on the shoulder, a gesture of ultimate condescension. As he did, Elena finally turned to face him. Her expression was not one of fear or shame, but of a profound, weary patience. Her worn, oversized work jacket, unzipped in the warm lobby, shifted and fell open. The light from the overhead fixtures caught something pinned to the simple, faded t-shirt she wore underneath. It wasn't a brooch or a name tag. It was a small, heavy collection of metal and ribbon, dulled by age but unmistakable in its form. The narrator's voice begins here, a quiet indictment of the scene unfolding. He saw her as nothing, an old woman, a problem to be managed. He was about to fire her in front of everyone, a final, cruel display to assert his dominance. But as he looked down, ready to deliver the final blow, the light caught the distinct, 8-pointed shape of a bronze star, and next to it, the unmistakable, heartbreaking purple of a soldier's sacrifice. He froze. The blood drained from his face. He wasn't looking at a cleaning lady. He was looking at a decorated combat veteran, and he had just insulted her on the very ground she had fought to protect. Mark Thompson's world was built on a simple, flawed foundation. He believed a person's worth was directly proportional to their job title and the cost of their suit. He had graduated from a prestigious business school, not because he was brilliant, but because his father was a significant donor. He had climbed the corporate ladder at Innovate Dynamics, not through innovation, but through ruthless office politics and taking credit for the work of others. He saw the world as a hierarchy, and he was determined to be at the top no matter who he had to step on to get there. Elena Morales was, in his eyes, the bottom rung of that ladder. He knew nothing of her life, nor did he care to. He didn't know that she woke up at 4 a.m. every morning, not just for this job but for a second one at a diner to make ends meet. He didn't know that she lived in a small, humble apartment filled with neatly organized books and a single, framed photograph of a young man in an army uniform. He didn't know that her quietness was not a sign of meekness, but a carefully constructed wall to keep the ghosts of her past at bay. The job, for Elena, was a form of therapy. The repetitive, methodical work of cleaning quieted the noise in her head, wiping away smudges, polishing floors, making the world clean and orderly. It was a small act of control in a life that had been defined by chaos. She had seen the worst of humanity in the dust and fire of Fallujah, and now she found a strange peace in the quiet, sterile halls of a corporate building. After that first public humiliation, Mark's harassment escalated. It became his personal mission to break her quiet dignity. He would deliberately spill coffee on the floor just before her shift ended and then write her up for leaving a mess. He would complain to human resources that she was slow, that she was lazy, that she didn't meet the Innovate Dynamics standard. He couldn't understand why she didn't just quit. He couldn't comprehend that a woman who had faced down RPGs and IEDs was not going to be broken by a spoiled boy with a fancy title. Elena never reported him. To whom would she complain? And for what? That her boss was a bully. She had faced down men far worse than Mark Thompson. She simply endured, her silence and a steadfast competence, a constant, infuriating challenge to his authority. She would clean his deliberate messes without a word, her movements calm and efficient. Every pristine surface she left behind was a silent act of defiance. The breaking point came during the company's annual innovation gala, a lavish event held to impress clients and celebrate the year's successes. The CEO of Innovate Dynamics, Mr. Harrison, was a man from a different era. He was a self-made man, a Marine Corps veteran who had built the company from the ground up on principles of integrity and respect. He was everything Mark Thompson pretended to be. The gala was in full swing. Mark was in his element, schmoozing with clients, his voice loud and confident. At the back of the grand ballroom, Elena was part of the event's cleaning crew, quietly clearing empty glasses and plates, trying to remain invisible. Mark, emboldened by champagne, saw her. He saw another opportunity to assert his dominance. He cornered her near a service entrance. "I hope you're not stealing the silverware," he sneered, his voice low and venomous. "I'll be checking your bag on the way out." Before Elena could respond, the room quieted as Mr. Harrison took the stage to give his keynote address. Mark, annoyed at the interruption, shot Elena a final, hateful glare and melted back into the crowd. Mr. Harrison spoke of innovation, of the future, of the company's achievements, but then his tone shifted. "Tonight, we celebrate our successes," he said, his voice resonating with a deep sincerity. "But it's important to remember that none of this would be possible without the bedrock of this nation, the men and women who serve in our armed forces. Their sacrifice gives us the freedom to innovate, to build, to dream." He paused, his eyes scanning the room. "We have many veterans who are part of our Innovate Dynamics family, and we are proud of every single one of them. But true heroism often doesn't seek the spotlight. It prefers the quiet, the humble, the anonymous. Tonight I want to break that anonymity for a moment to honor a true American hero who walks these halls every day." A nervous energy filled the room. Mark looked around, intrigued. "Many of you know her only as a member of our cleaning staff," Mr. Harrison continued, "but I know her by another title. Please join me in honoring Sergeant First Class Elena Morales, United States Army, retired." A single spotlight cut through the dim ballroom, searching, and finally landing on Elena, who stood frozen by the service entrance, a tray of empty glasses in her hands. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, her face pale with shock and a deep, profound discomfort. Mark Thompson's heart stopped. Morales, that was her name. Sergeant First Class. The title lit him like a physical blow. "Sergeant Morales," Mr. Harrison said, his voice filled with emotion as he read from a card. "Served 2 tours in Iraq as a combat medic. During the Second Battle of Fallujah, her convoy was hit by a complex ambush, pinned down under heavy machine gun and sniper fire. She repeatedly, and without regard for her own life, left the relative safety of her vehicle to render aid to the wounded." The room was utterly silent now, all eyes fixed on the small, unassuming woman at the back of the room. When her platoon sergeant was critically wounded in an exposed position, Mr. Harrison's voice cracked slightly. Sergeant Morales shielded his body with her own while applying a tourniquet that saved his life. She remained in that position, under direct fire, for nearly 20 minutes until reinforcements arrived. For this act of conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of her life above and beyond the call of duty, she was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with a V for Valor. A wave of murmurs and gasps swept through the audience. Mark felt the blood drain from his face. The investors he had tried to impress were staring, first at Elena, and then at him, their expressions a mixture of awe and dawning contempt. Mr. Harrison wasn't finished. During that same engagement, Sergeant Morales was struck by shrapnel from a rocket grenade while dragging another wounded soldier to cover. She ignored her own injuries and continued to treat the wounded until she collapsed from blood loss. For the wounds she received in action against an enemy of the United States, she was awarded the Purple Heart. He put down the card and looked directly at Elena, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "The platoon sergeant she saved that day was me." The revelation landed with the force of a thunderclap. The entire ballroom erupted into a deafening, spontaneous standing ovation. The applause washed over Elena, who stood trembling, her face streaked with tears. Mark Thompson felt as if the floor had fallen out from under him. He was suffocating, his cheap suit suddenly feeling like the cleaning lady he had tormented, the woman he had called weak and incompetent, had saved the life of the man he so desperately wanted to impress. She was not just a hero, she was his hero. The aftermath was swift and brutal for Mark. After the gala, as a line of employees and executives formed to shake Elena's hand, Mr. Harrison found Mark trying to slip out a side door. "Mr. Thompson," the CEO's voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like a razor. "A word, please." In the cold, stark light of the hallway, there was no hiding. "I've received some troubling reports about your management style, Mark," Mr. Harrison said, his eyes like chips of ice. "Reports of harassment, specifically towards Sergeant Morales." Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was undone, exposed. "Let me be clear," Mr. Harrison continued. "A man is not defined by his title or his salary. He is defined by his character, by how he treats those he has power over. And you, son, have shown me that you have no character at all. Your position here is terminated. effective immediately. Security will escort you out. The final scene of the story is not one of triumph for Elena, but of quiet peace. The next evening, she is back at work, polishing the glass of the lobby. The building is quiet. Mark Thompson is gone, but something has changed. As employees leave for the day, they no longer walk past her without a glance. They nod, they smile, some stop to thank her for her service. She is no longer invisible. Mr. Harrison finds her there, holding 2 cups of coffee. He hands one to her. They stand together for a moment in comfortable silence, 2 old soldiers looking out at the city lights. "You know," Mr. Harrison says softly, "I never properly thanked you for that day." Elena takes a sip of her coffee, a small, genuine smile finally gracing her lips. "You didn't have to, sir," she replies, her voice steady and clear. "We were just doing our job." And in the reflection on the perfectly clean glass, she no longer sees just a cleaning lady. She sees a soldier, a hero, a survivor. She sees herself whole and complete, finally at peace.